sports leader. This is WGEM Sports.
We're just over a month away from the college football season kicking off, and up in South Bend, Indiana, Hannibal product Aneyas Williams is projected to be the new starting running back for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. In his first 2 seasons with Notre Dame, Williams saw limited playing time, in large part because he played behind 2 guys who were recently taken in the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft. But when given opportunities, the former Pirates, he's made them count, averaging just under 8 yards per carry while finding the end zone 7 times, which Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman has seen firsthand.
Aneyas is he's a talented football player that when he's been given the opportunity has made some really big plays and done some really great things in big moments and maybe end of the game moments, but all we do is evaluate what he does when he's given the opportunity. And now he's going to be in a position to get that opportunity a lot more. And so I'm very confident in Aneyas, the entire running back room.
The Fighting Irish will kick off their season on September 6th. That's when they'll play Wisconsin at Lambeau Field in Green Bay.